Hey everybody, it's Jen, and I am coming on here to show you my process for making my collage journaling cards. You can also make tags and postcards, whatever it is that you want to do. You could also give them as part of snail mail to your pen pals. I put some on my Instagram yesterday that were bright and colorful, and people seemed to be pretty excited about them, so I finished up this video I made a couple months ago. So that you could see my process. So I've started to cut out a lot of imagery so that I can have a collection on hand, and so I'm going through that, of going through fussy cuts and things and picking out different focal points that I will want to put on my final finished journaling cards. So here I'm organizing them just so I can see everything to start the process. So the next step I'm doing is I'm getting my substrate that I'm going to use for my journaling cards. You could use cardstock paper, and here I'm using recycled cereal boxes, and they come out pretty thick and durable, so that's a good option. Here I'm sanding the glossy part just a little bit. Might not be necessary depending on the glue that you're using, but I just did it to be on the safe side. So I'm starting with, on this one, I'm starting with somewhat neutral colored scraps, and I'm just gluing away. You don't have to really pay attention to, the composition. Is everything balanced? Are the colors balanced throughout this big piece? Because you're going to be cutting them up into smaller pieces at the end. So this is a really relaxing, just freeing activity you can do. And sure, you can start to pay attention with colors and practice with creating compositions in your collage, but it's, if you are not happy with it, it doesn't matter in the end, because you're going to be cutting it up. So here I am trimming off the overhang from what I glued, and I'm using an Uhu glue stick, which is I think it's like a professional grade glue stick for collage artists. It's sort of expensive, and I have to order it from Blick, so I'm not sure. The reason I got it is because it's made from 98% natural materials. But the frustrating thing to me with glue sticks and markers is that you can't recycle the plastic that it comes in. So I'm just at a loss right now with that issue. Here I'm making a second. I've heard it called a master board, a collage master board. So basically, it's a foundation and a background to get you started. And here I'm measuring out 4 inches wide for my cards, just because I think that's the biggest card I can get from this piece of cereal box. Or that's how I can break it down equally to still make it functional for people to write on them. And I use my rotary cutter to cut paper. I don't really sew a lot of dresses or anything these days, so I just use my rotary cutter for all my paper crafting needs. And here I'm cutting them in different sizes, so I have a variety of sizes. And here you see me kind of showing off what I have so far. And you can see how when you cut it up and take it out of that previous context, actually how neat they look. So don't worry or stress too much about, you gluing down things. Just try to try to use neutrals and then colors that look good together, not colors that really clash, because this is a background. And you don't want it to be too distracting or heavy, because you're going to be putting layers on top of it. So here I am just looking at my journaling card and seeing, what else does it need. It may start to need little pops of color in different spaces. And I'm picking out what my focal point is going to be on the card. So here I'm just playing with the different imageries I have, and I decided, okay, I want the color to peek through this flower, the texture of that hand painted paper to peek through the flowers. So I decided to cut it down even more. And then you can see a little hand coming in. That was, I think, one of my daughters. That is sort of like a bone folder I'm using to help glue all the edges down. And I think that one's not really a bone folder per se, but it came with a paper folder thing. You know, the thing that makes the creases so that you can fold a paper. I can never remember what they're called. So here I'm using my next step, which is what I did with the cards I posted yesterday on Instagram, is then I add stamps. It just adds an additional layer in texture. And I was having problems with my stamps sticking to the acrylic block. So I'm just, and I'm using the Ranger, I think it's Ranger archival inks. I've had these stamps for a few years now. I used to stamp on fabric to make pattern, fabric designs, by hand. So I still have those, and they're pretty good. And let's see. Yeah, and so with that leafy stamp, I really love that because I can turn it and rotate it and make it look like a different stamp just by turning it and stamping it from different angles. And it's also interesting when you can stamp like halfway over your edge. Then it kind of looks like it was a kind of like a pattern, a repeated pattern sort of. So I think I'm done with that first one as far as this stage. And that first card, I showed you the whole entire process. And I think from now on, I just kind of cut in and out to show you the progress. But I just don't want the video to be too long. It's no longer than 11 minutes. So if you can keep on and keep watching, it'll be worth your while. And it really helps when you are getting your focal points and you're rotating them to see what the best angle is. And you want to keep turning it until it looks right with your eye. Because as humans, we are designed to see things that look good. So just trust your eye, and when it looks right, then you know you got it. So I added stamps to that one, and now I'm working on yet another one. Here I decided to switch up my colors, and again I'm using Ranger archival ink, and I'm showing you the two different brands of stamping pads I've used. I think the other one was called Yellow Owl Workshop. I think at this point I prefer the Ranger ink because they haven't dried out. And the other inks, I think I used them up a lot for my fabric printing. So I decided to change up the color, and I really like how that's blending in more, I guess, with the rest of the cards. I think the brown is maybe a little too contrasting and distracting from the focal points. I don't know. It just depends on what you like. So here again, I'm just playing with compositions and what kind of focal points do I want to put on my collage cards. And these are all fussy cuts from vintage books on flowers and plants. And I have been working on building a big collection of different subject areas. And so I still have so much. I still have a huge box of things that I want to cut out, birds and, just different subjects and flowers and things like that. So again, I'm just kind of turning things and determining when will it look good, what angle does it look good. And this is my finished product, and I did some stitching as a last step. It's not really functional, I don't think, but it does help to keep everything pinned down. But it's just to add one last decorative element. And I punched holes in them with some hole supporters. I don't know what they're called. I'm getting so old and like I can't remember my words, but I strung some string through it, as you can see. And this is what I got from just an old cereal box and just scrap paper and a few cutouts. It's so simple. You can do it. Just try to stay within the same color family and you'll make something beautiful. Thank you guys, and let me know what you think.